Britain votes on leaving the EU. The fight heats up over the next Supreme Court justice, and experts predict a major earthquake for Southern California soon. This is SkyWatch TV for February 22nd, 2016. I'm Derek Gilbert. First, at least 140 people dead in bomb attacks in Syria on Sunday. 2 car bombs in the central Syrian city of Homs killed 53, wounded more than 100. In Damascus, a pair of car bombs and 2 suicide bombers left 83 dead, more than 180 injured, near the Shiite shrine of Sayyida Zainab. Not surprisingly, the Islamic State claimed responsibility for those attacks. It appears that Israel's diplomatic mission to Moscow was a failure. The head of Israel's foreign ministry met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to try to persuade Russia to back off on its bombing campaign in southern Syria. Refugees are flooding toward the Syrian borders with Jordan and Israel, but the bombing continues. Now, it could be a couple of different goals in mind here. Besides crushing rebel resistance in the south and freeing the strategic town of Daraa near the Jordanian border, the goal appears to be protecting the Druze enclave in the mountainous region north of the Israeli border. Now, the Druze are a religious sect. They split off from the Ismaili branch of Shia Islam in the 11th century. They consider themselves descendants of Jethro, Moses' Midianite father-in-law. About 750,000 of them live in those mountains north of Israel. That's about half the world's population of Druze, and they're supporters of Syria's President Bashar al-Assad. So, this secondary goal of Russia, by protecting the Druze, could be to impress the Kurds in northern Syria to align with Russia, as opposed to the United States, which is sitting back and watching Turkey fire artillery shells at Kurdish positions in northern Syria. And oh yes, while Turkey also sends weapons and fighters across its borders to the Islamic State. NATO has warned the government of Turkey that it will not support the Turks if they provoke a fight with Russia, which is good because Turkey is the one trying to pick a fight, apparently. Seems that they hope Article 5 of the NATO Charter will force Europe and the United States to jump in on their side if a shooting match begins. Sort of like the little kid on the schoolyard who picks a fight with somebody bigger, knowing that his even bigger older brother has his back. Meanwhile, Iran turned up in Moscow, dropped a really big check on the desk in front of Vladimir Putin and said, "Build us a world-class army, please." That check had a 14 on it, followed by 9 zeros. $14 billion and a really long shopping list, including high-tech advanced ballistic missiles, Su-30 and Su-35 fighter bombers, top-of-the-line T-90 battle tanks, heavy artillery, rocket launchers, various and assorted other things. The proposal is to acquire all of these weapons over the next 10 years. Now, Western military analysts say this is unrealistic. Russia's defense industry is having trouble keeping up with the demand from its own military, which is using up a little artillery ammunition these days in Syria and in Ukraine. Plus, they have existing contracts to supply weapons to China and India. Now, while it's unquestionable that Iran is a state sponsor of terror and no friend to the U.S. or Israel, in my view, Saudi Arabia and its Sunni allies in the Persian Gulf have more to worry about from Iran than we do. Sunnis and Shias have been fighting each other since the 7th century. Their feud turned violent within 25 years of Muhammad's death, 657 AD. You can look that up. Christians didn't join in the fun until almost 450 years later. First Crusade didn't start until 1096, and that was after Muslims conquered all of the Christian kingdoms in the Middle East, North Africa, and some of them in Southern Europe. So the real prize for Iran, not Jerusalem, at least not in the short term. Makes good PR, but they would really want to get their hands on Mecca and Medina for the prestige that would bring them in the Islamic world. Shias are a minority among Islam, about 15%. But if they could take those cities and, that would be a coup. And then, of course, then go for Jerusalem. However, Iran's proxies in Hezbollah more than happy to make trouble for Israel. Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, last week threatened to hit the ammonia plant at the Israeli city of Haifa with a missile, calling this Lebanon's nuclear bomb because the release of that deadly ammonia gas in the city would kill tens of thousands of people, according to Nasrallah. The city of Haifa responded with a press release, kind of tongue-in-cheek, thanking Nasrallah for bringing the subject up and expressing its hope that the government of Israel would hurry up and move that ammonia tank out of missile range. Those plans are in the works. Speaking of, by the way, Israel and the U.S. kicked off its biannual air defense exercise today. However, U.S. participation in this exercise is at its lowest level in 14 years, probably reflecting the relationship between President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu. The world may have hit a speed bump on the road to Babel. The United Kingdom voting this summer on leaving the European Union. Vote takes place on June 23rd. There have been growing calls in the UK to leave Europe. In fact, the UK Independence Party drew 13% of the vote in last May's general election. So this could be a possible hitch in the plans of the globalists. Although if past history in the EU is any clue, any guide, as with their do-over in Ireland on the vote for the Treaty of Lisbon in 2009, the EU may just compel British voters to keep voting until they get it right. London Mayor Boris Johnson came out in favor of a leave vote over the weekend, took Prime Minister David Cameron by surprise. Johnson texted his intention to support the leave vote 9 minutes before he went in front of cameras and announced it to the press. This, even though Johnson was promised, apparently, a very powerful cabinet position by Prime Minister Cameron in exchange for his stay vote, of course. Johnson, by the way, by doing this, may just have guaranteed that he'll be the next Prime Minister of the UK. High-ranking military officers in Britain taking to the airwaves to convince the public that leaving the EU would be bad for British security, that somehow their military safety depends on being a part of the European Union. But not all British military officers are on board with this. Retired General Mike Jackson told a reporter, security is NATO's job, not the EU. Of course, that's what the globalists want, all under one roof. Perhaps another crack in the globalist facade regarding the European Union. A German plan to bail in owners of European government bonds could drive other nations out of the EU, specifically Italy, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. This plan, which has the support of the Bundesbank, which is Germany's central bank, and the powerful German finance minister, would require bondholders of sovereign debt to cover losses on any of those government-issued bonds before the European Central Bank would step in and bail out whatever was left. This could lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy. Several of those nations in Europe, are trying to balance unsustainable debt loads, frankly. Bondholders of sovereign debt issued by those nations under a bail-in plan might feel compelled to dump those bonds so that they wouldn't be the ones left holding the bag if and when the bonds actually became worthless. So Italy, Spain, and Portugal, under a normal system, if they had their own national currency, could protect themselves somewhat through currency manipulation, but they're all part of the Eurozone. So one analyst said that if he were the government of Italy, if this bail-in proposal is accepted by the European Central Bank, he would recommend the government of Italy drop the euro, reissue the lira immediately in order to avoid going bankrupt. Now, closer to home, in the U.S., experts at NASA and the U.S. Geological Survey say that there's a high probability of an earthquake, a major earthquake in Southern California in the very near future. This subject comes back to the forefront because of a magnitude 4.8 quake that hit in the Sierra Nevada mountains last week near the town of Big Pine. Geophysicists at the Jet Propulsion Lab say a quake of magnitude 5 or greater will strike with almost 100% certainty within 60 miles of Los Angeles within the next 3 years. Repeating, a quake of magnitude 5 or greater within 60 miles of LA within the next 3 years. Experts at the USGS also predict a major earthquake, although their time frame is a little longer. They put the chances at better than 99% of a 6.7 quake. That's about the strength of the one that hit Northridge back in '94. They're looking out to about 30 years. Come out of her, my people. The fight over the replacement for the late Justice Antonin Scalia, which, by the way, went public faster than the conspiracy theories about his death, prove a point that may be obvious to you, so forgive me if I'm stating the obvious. Republicans declared almost immediately that President Obama, because he's a lame duck, should not appoint the next justice to the Supreme Court. Democrats immediately firing back that Republicans are hypocrites. They say they love the Constitution, except when it's inconvenient. So this fight, though, really drives home a point that had never occurred to me before. I mean, I remember from classes in high school, when we studied the Constitution, we've got the three branches of the government in the United States, which are supposed to balance the power so that no one branch of government dominates the government, dominates the people. Obviously, what we've got in the last couple presidential administrations is a Congress that is happy to be number 3 in the pecking order in the branches of the federal government, between the branches of the federal government. The fact that confirming a Supreme Court justice has become so contentious, so vicious in recent years here in the United States proves that the Supreme Court is not an impartial judiciary body that rules with complete objectivity on matters of the law. It is, in fact, a political body, a legislative body, and the most powerful legislative body in the United States. We got over 450 elected representatives in Congress. There are 9 people on the Supreme Court. That's 1 for every 35 million Americans or thereabouts. And they're not even elected. And they serve for life or until they retire, whichever comes first. Talk about taxation without representation. So, with the presidential election coming up this November in the United States, Christians, we need to do our duty as citizens, research the issues and the candidates to the best of our ability, and make our judgments to the best of our ability in accordance with biblical principles. But we just need to remember, we're not voting Jesus into the White House, nor will the next president appoint Jesus to the Supreme Court. If this land is going to be pulled out of a spiral of moral decay, it is not going to happen in a voting booth. It will happen because you and I are sharing the hope we have in Christ Jesus with our family members, our friends, and our colleagues. If we make enough disciples in this land, then it won't matter who sits on the Supreme Court or who sits in the Oval Office. Conversely, if we don't, the moral decay continues. There's nothing we can do at the ballot box that will turn it around. In fact, the only government that can keep order when people have completely rejected biblical standards of morality is a total dictatorship. And that, my friends, is the direction we are headed at the moment. It's a new week and a new program on SkyWatchTV. Reverend Dr. Robert Bennett joins us for another discussion of his excellent books, I Am Not Afraid and Afraid, Demonic Possession and Spiritual Warfare in America. It airs multiple times this week on different networks. Today, on the Victory Television Network at 8:30 p.m. All these times are Central Time, by the way. Tonight, 8:30 p.m. on the Victory Television Network. Tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. and Saturday at 3:30 p.m., all on the Victory Television Network. On the Christian Television Network, tomorrow night, Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Central Time, and Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. And then on the Cornerstone Network, Wednesday afternoon at 3:30 p.m., again, all times Central. And for a list of channels, outlets, where you can find those networks that broadcast SkyWatch TV, log on to skywatchtv.com and you'll find a link to the channel listings in the very top menu bar. And of course, being Monday, the program is now available on the SkyWatch TV channel on Roku. And if you have one of those set-top boxes and have not yet added SkyWatch TV's channel to your account, and you need instructions on how to do it, log on to skywatchtv.com/Roku. And of course, that time costs, so we appreciate and depend upon your financial support during the month of February while supplies last. Our gift to you for your gift of any amount is this stone look cross carved with the central message of the gospel, John 3:16. Stands 8 inches tall, makes a wonderful desk accoutrement. If you need instructions on how to donate, log on to skywatchtv.com/donate. And we are still asking for your help. The film produced by SkyWatch TV and Defender Films on the transhumanist movement, Inhuman, The Next and Final Phase of Man, is nominated for a People's Choice Award in the 37th Annual Tellies. You'll find a link to where you can rate Inhuman the movie and get a 10-minute free sample of the film, by the way, posted at the very top of the website, SkyWatchTV.com. And of course, your mouse clicks also help us. Click like, click share, click subscribe, and that little subscribe button is on this side of the screen, I think. Anyway, you'll see it if you're watching this on YouTube. Do those things, and that helps spread the word. And of course, when I get motivated and post stuff to the interwebs, it's here, Twitter, Facebook, and my website. My email address, crawling across your screen right now, dgilbert@skywatchtv.com. Send me your comments, questions, and suggestions. And thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.
From the time she was little, Nita dreamed of horses. Every childhood fantasy rode on the back of a heroic white steed, coming to save the day.
I don't know how long I've had this love in my heart for horses. It's just always been there. And when we were little girls, my sister and I would play all day long. I was always the white horse and she was always the little pink pig.
Let's pretend Lightning and Rosie can fly.
But everything changed in a heartbeat. On December 9th, 1971, a tragic car accident claimed the life of my dad and my best friend and my little sister. And I wondered after that if there was anything left to believe in.
Move aside, let the ambulance through. Please move aside.
As a child of 13, I felt like I had lost practically everything. And I wondered, is this it? I mean, where do I go from here? I could not have imagined back then how God could use horses, of all things, to restore my faith and vision for the future.
Starting April 19th, get your copy of Nita Horn's inspirational new book, No Fences, and learn for the first time her amazing story of loss, survival, determination, and healing. How the vision and love God gave her for these beautiful and majestic animals eventually led to the 150-acre Whispering Ponies Ranch, a general retreat facility, as well as a premier training location that specializes in using and gifting therapeutic animals to benefit the herding. Other care facilities, schools, and ministries across the nation.
When God puts something in your heart, it's there for a lifetime.